Hi, everyone. This is Marilyn from Take Me Home Italy, and I'm here with a writer that I admire greatly and a person who I appreciate her ethics and morals and so on as well. Michelle Damiani, I should say. Michelle Damiani. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, so good to see you.
So good to see you too. We've been talking for years and never actually been face to face. We've tried a few times, but we haven't made it yet. So far, this is as close as we've gotten.
Indeed.
So, Michelle, tell us a little bit about who you are and where you came from. Did you grow up in
Mhm.
California or?
I somewhat, I was born in Panama, lived in Brussels, lived in Chicago, and then moved to California. So formative years, yes, in California, but smattering of other places as well, which I
Oh,
think
you
is
know,
probably what like cemented the wanderlust.
yes, because you are a wanderer and a
Mhm.
traveler. So,
Mhm.
and I know that you met your husband. Did you meet him in California?
Yeah, we met at in college.
Where did you go?
We went to Stanford, both of us.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and then we got together there, and then thought we were going to spend the rest of our lives in California, so we should really experience graduate school someplace totally different. So we went to Virginia, and then we never ended up living in California again, except for 1 year during my residency.
But you really like Virginia.
I do. We like it a lot. Like the lifestyle is intimate and cozy, and there's stuff happening because it's a university town. We live in Charlottesville, and it's got its problems, as you know, because people have
Oh
heard the
yeah,
word Charlottesville by now.
yes.
But
It is Minneapolis. Right?
yeah.
I now
Indeed.
introduce myself as I was when they say, "Where did you come from?" You know George Floyd? Yeah. I used to say Prince, but now it's George.
Yeah, yeah,
So
you should
I
still.
understand Charlottesville.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where we settled and raised our kids, but the wanderlust thing was always there. And we'd had a dream of moving to Italy. We completely abandoned it in the process of graduate school, jobs, kids. And then one day it was right after we had Gabe, my youngest, and we were out for our anniversary when your cousin, my mother in law, was staying with Gabe. And so we went out for our anniversary. It's his Italian restaurant. It was no good in Virginia, but it was still an Italian restaurant. So, Prosecco and stuff. And as we were sitting there, the idea just kind of occurred again. And we said, could we the conversation changed from why would we do this to why wouldn't we do this? And then we decided, let's just make it happen in 5 years. We came up with a 5 year plan, which we thought our youngest would be 5 and ready for kindergarten. And then we would have a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old because they were younger at the time. And it would give us plenty of time to plan and save and plan. And that's what we did.
Yeah, I found you online and started reading the Il Bel Centro and kept thinking, I'm retired, semi-retired, and it was easier for me to move here, and I was a citizen before I moved here. But how
Mhm.
did you do it? So hearing this 5 year plan, and that makes sense. And I remember reading about your book, and then we were talking, and I said, I have some Damiani blood too. And you said, what? And so we found out that Keith and I, your husband and I, are some kind of cousins. I don't know, second
Yeah.
cousin or something. But that's how we started chatting. And the internet is an amazing place with horrible nightmares and wonderful surprises like that.
Yeah, there are plenty of times where I think, you know what? Twitter, whatever, who needs it? I'm just going to get rid of it. And then I remember this fortuitous moment when our lives intersected when you messaged me and said, so which Damiani are you? Are you related to these people in this place? And I said, oh my God. I mean, not me, my husband, but goodness gracious. The
It's a
sudden
small
surprise.
world. It
Yeah.
is a small world. So then I started following you and I read Il Bel Centro and loved it. How did you pick Spello?
So a couple things. One is that I knew I wanted to write a book about the experience. I've always been attracted to stories of people who shake things up for a year, living on minimum wage, nickel and dimed, or only eating food from a 100-mile radius, or stories of people just shaking it up for a year. have always been attractive to me, particularly travel stories. And so I knew that was something I wanted to do. I wasn't gonna, I'm a therapist by trade, but I was gonna obviously be taking the year off back then. Now I can do therapy online because of the, pandemic. Everybody just kind of got used to it. But back then it was not a thing that happened. And so I thought I'd take a year off. I would write, our kids would go to school. And so, so when we started thinking France, Italy, because I'm French, by my mom was born in Paris, and her family goes back to the 1600s. And so I thought maybe France, but then we did a trip. We went to France and we went to Italy. And I'm not sure if it's because I run slightly anxious and I felt a little bit of pressure in France, like I don't speak the language, but I sort of felt like I should speak the language. Where in Italy, like I was not expected to speak the language, but something about entering Italy after being in France, it felt like the sun came out and I could take off my heavy winter jacket. And so I thought, this is how I want to feel. Like, this is what I need to feel, this kind of openness and grace in my life. So we started looking in Italy, mostly in Umbria, where I am, partly because we thought it would be good to be close to a city that we liked, and it's 2 hours from Florence, and it's 2 hours from Rome. Turns out that didn't matter at all. Like, I would not recommend people plan on staying somewhere purely to be close to a major city, because there's plenty of other cities that are less touristed and really fun. But so that shrank the window. And then with 3 kids, we needed a 3-bedroom house at least. I didn't want to put my teenager in the room with my 5-year-old, or 3 of them all in one room. Just wouldn't work for travel, of course, it's fine, but for a year it wouldn't be. And we wanted to live in the center of town so they could walk to school. So finding a rental that fit, and in the center of town, with a school so an elementary school and a middle school that they could all go to. Our options were fairly limited. And then Keith and I came for a scouting trip, and in that trip, I was all set. Like, I knew exactly where I wanted us to land. And we got out of the car in that town, which I'm not going to mention just in case I offend anybody. And it was so quiet, so dead. I felt like we had to talk like we were in a library, like we had to whisper to each other. And I said, this is not what I wanted. And then I talked to the lady who let us into the apartment, which was going to be the apartment we were going to live in. And she said there were, I think, 60 kids in the school, and 20 of them were English speaking. And I thought, and she said, and they keep to themselves. And I thought, this is not the experience I want. We went to a couple other towns and it sort of felt the same. And then we arrived in Spello and we got out of the car, I think pretty much right when the kids were getting out of school, and the town was just a buzz. There was, old people having ice cream in the piazza, and kids running down from the school, and people stepping out of the pharmacy, and people going into the post office. And I thought that this is what I was thinking. And so it became instantly obvious that this is where we needed to be.
I took an hour in Chiavari and realized this was my heart. And I never expected that. I looked for 2 years, and this was the case. In an hour, I chose it. So I understand that, where you just kind of feel, you hear the noises, you feel the ambiance, you feel the energy or the soul of the town. Just walking around your town and meeting, seeing the people happy. And then I have the sea. So
yes,
what I wanted. So have you thought about actually living here forever now? I know you thought about it at one time when you were young. Do you think you?
Yeah, I mean, so all of that was, multiple years ago. And so we lived here from 2012 to 2013. And we've been back a few times since then. I wrote a book in the interim about the experience, and the town had a party for me. So I came and attended that, and that was just exquisitely lovely. And then a couple more times since then. And then this year we were supposed to do a totally different trip. We were supposed to be doing this year around the world, and you can guess what happened. But the pandemic put its finger on many things. And so when we were here in 2012, Keith worked to get his citizenship. So he had citizenship and the kids had citizenship. And so coming back here became an option. And it did not feel like a consolation prize. It felt like we won the lottery. Once we realized, holy smokes, we can just go back to Spello and spend a year there. And if it's a pandemic, it's a pandemic. At least we're in Spello. And so that's what we did. And So glad. So in this year, we've done a lot of, should we stay? And life is just so good here. Just really, it's beautiful. But it's tricky. Like a lot of people, and I know you, I'm sure, have some of these struggles too. Having your family back in the United States is hard. So our eldest, who was in middle school at the time, is now living in New York City. Our daughter, who's with us now for her gap year, is about to start Rice University in the fall. It doesn't really seem like the time to abscond. So I suspect that when our youngest graduates from high school and he's in college, we'll be spending a chunk of the year here. How much? Like, kind of depends. I mean, it's not like I don't like the United States. I love it. I love our town and I love our home and I love our community where we are in Charlottesville. I just love this too. And frankly, I feel like moving back and forth helps me appreciate it. Like, going away and then coming back to Spello makes me see it with fresh eyes. So I'm happy to do that.
There are a lot of expats and so on that do the 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
because it saves you so much money on taxes as well.
Mm-hmm.
I really love it here, but I have not seen my Nipotina Magnolia or my daughter Stephanie for it'll be a year and a half before I see them again. So
Mm-hmm.
I am hoping to go in July back to the US and spend some time with them. And my dad's turning 97 in July.
Wow.
And I want to see him. He has dementia, so I want to see him while he remembers me again. I want to see him again and see my sister and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But this feels like home to me. I'm in a different situation because my daughter is more like your age, so, but my granddaughter just turned 10, so that's really difficult. I miss her terribly. The benefit of COVID has been to be able to do this, FaceTiming with her or talking to her online and so on, and seeing her face and joking around and making funny faces. She tells me stories and she's actually writing. And so it's really been kind of fun when she reads me stories that she's been writing.
Oh, that's so heartwarming.
I can't wait to see her. So I think I've read all of your books except the second one. What was your second book about families traveling in Italy?
Yes, The Road Taken. Mm-hmm.
I did not read that one. I'm sorry.
Of course, why would you?
I'm all by myself.
Right.
So I decided I just skipped that one, but I love the Santa Lucia series, and I know
I'm so glad.
all four of them were very entertaining, easy flow, beautiful writing, and I felt like I'd visited Santa Lucia. Have you? Now I know you're writing something else as well. I mean, are you working? You're working on some things again now, right? Are they?
Oh my gosh,
nonfiction or fiction?
Everything, it feels like. So when I wrote the memoir, it was actually BEL CENTRO. It was based on the blog that I kept while we were here, and the Spellani who lived in Spello loved my blog. They would look it up and they would use Google Translate, and then they'd read it and then they'd correct me and tell me all the ways I got something totally wrong. And it was adorable. It really, really was. And so then when we came back, one of my friends took a video of my Italian teacher, Angela. And in the video, he's like, he's straightening his papers, moving things around. It's like, pronto? Are you ready? She said, yes. And so then he begins and he says to me in Italian, because he speaks no English, except, what did he say? The other day, he said, true love. So this is one of the very few things he can say in English, but everything else is in Italian. So that was very fetching. He said, I noticed that you haven't been writing about Spello anymore. And that makes sense because you're not here. But if I can offer you a piece of advice, invent something. And I thought, you might be onto something. I had been missing Spello terribly. So I thought, what if I write this series of books that centers on a bar in a town that I just make up? I can have anything I want to have happen and create relationships between people. They're somewhat modeled on things I saw, but obviously dramatized a lot for effect. I was kind of going for a little bit of a telenovela vibe. So I did, and that's where the Santa Lucia series came from. So I finished that. That's just 4 books and a novella. The novella is free, by the way. Go to my website.
Read it yet, yeah.
What's that?
I think I need to read that. I haven't read that.
You do? I will send you the link. You can go to my my website, michelledamiani.com. There's a little spot for it right there. In any case, so 2 years ago, when I was here for a visit, Angelo said, what do you feel about working on a book together where I tell you the stories and histories and legends of Spello in Italian, and then you translate them? And I thought, that's a great idea. But then I really thought he would just forget about it. But when we got here this time, he's the teacher for my son now. And he started handing Gabe these sheets of paper that he's written on his 1939 typewriter. It is
my Lord.
Yes, so he's giving them all to me. And the translation was a bear, as you can imagine, because it's not a document. So we had to like take pictures and scan it. And so I gave all of that to my son, Nicholas, who lives in New York. Angelo was his teacher, and they have a really strong, sweet relationship. So he's doing like the first pass of the translation, and then I'm going to take it over. So it's going to be a book in Italian and English. And he got somebody from the University of Perugia to write the foreword for it. Last name Damiani. How many Damianis can there be? I have no idea.
They're everywhere.
They really, really are. Yeah. So I have that in the hopper. I also have a book I'm working on about Umbria. So my memoir was pretty personal, and this is less personal. So I think of it as like less personal growth, more prosciutto. So it's a lot more about the lifestyle of Umbria, what makes Umbria Umbria. Just so when people come and visit, they can just sink into it right away. Like you can really just sort of absorb it instead of going through these bumps of trying to figure out what niche does this fit in my brain. So I'm working on that. That's about close to halfway done now. I'm hoping to have a rough draft when I land back in home in July, so I can get that turned around. And I'm working on a new cozy mystery series. This one's set around the mountain from Spello, in a town I'm calling Arezzo. So I told myself I would not start it until I got home, because I love having that as a way to connect with Italy. The writing fiction is just, it's like a balm for me in that way. But I've not been able to stop myself. So I've been writing on that.
Find time for all this. Plus,
well, I was reading in bed for like an hour in the morning, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I could read, or I could like read with all the things that are in my head and like translate them down. And so I just kept getting distracted, because I would imagine these conversations, and I'd imagine the walls that this woman hit trying to acclimate to this new community that her mother was from, but then got exiled from. And I just had to get it down. I was afraid it was going to disappear. So I do that in the morning, and then I work on the Umbria book in the afternoon during pausa.
How much do you work with your clients every week? How many hours a week roughly?
So somewhere between 5 and 10, usually right around the average, like around 8.
And then you're a wife and a mom and a traveler and a Spello person. And
well, as you know, the traveling not so much happening during the pandemic. So
that is true. It's a good time to write. I got more inspired to do different things like this. So
exactly. You got to do something, right? The guy Eros, who lives down the road from us, and came by yesterday with a jar of sauce for pasta that's made from erbe campagnola, which is the greens you find in the countryside, and speck. So dear. Anyway, he's taken in the pandemic to making pipes. He said, because what are you going to do? Not pipes like smoking pipes, like flute type pipes. He paints them. And every time I see him, he has to show me on his phone all the pictures he's taken of his little, we got to do something.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we do. The best for me, as I said, was being able to talk to my granddaughter almost every day.
Oh, wow.
She lived in the West Coast. So, that's 9 hours difference. It was basically, I talked to her on the weekends, and they're busy on the weekends. So I would talk to her every 2 or 3 weeks. And now I get to talk to her every couple of days. She'll do it. She likes me to watch her do her homework. She's a homeschool now, till the end of the year. So, these little surprises that came up, and I finally got going on this particular book. So you're part of that inspiration, and I really appreciate your writing. I've read so many books by other people, and they're all different. Everybody writes differently, and you've seen what I do, and I'm more colloquial, more just down to earth kind of writing
Mhm.
in general. But there's only a few of the writers about Italy that I really, really love, and you're one of them. So
Oh,
most of
thank
the
you,
people
Marilyn.
oh, you're welcome. Most of the people I'm interviewing are people who have lived in Italy for years. They're either expats or dual citizens or locals.
Mhm.
But I wanted to interview you. I thought that's a way to get to talk to you and for one, finally meet you face to face at least, and
Right.
give you a virtual hug. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear about all these plans you've got for more books because I'll be reading them.
Oh,
I like mysteries too, or suspense, but
mhm.
do you like sci-fi? I have a sci-fi book also that I'm looking at.
Do you really?
Sci-fi fantasy, yeah. I have about 150 pages so far.
Is it
Types of
hard
pages.
to write like different genres at the same time?
Yes.
I mean, I guess I am, but mine are both like Italy centered, but like to do one sci-fi fantasy must be tricky.
Yeah, it is. Well, you have to create an entire world, just like you did with, I mean, Santa Lucia. Why do I keep
Mhm.
saying, want to say something else? Anyway,
Mhm.
you created the whole town. So you created that, minuscule
Sure.
part of the world. Here you have to create the entire world. And
Mhm.
so I started it years ago and I put it away, and my granddaughter wants me to bring it out. And so I brought it back out and I'm working on it a little, but I'm working on my book on my new neighborhood. And I have on the Patreon page that I have, I'm putting my first drafts of the chapters on there from each town in Liguria. And I do a newsletter there. So I give them more solid news about Italy, which is fun. And I write stories about running through town with pee in a jar and things. Going to the
That's fun.
doctor is so exciting here.
Right.
But it's wonderful. I mean, the medical is great. It's fine.
Mhm.
So it's just giving them more of a realistic picture of what life really is like. It's not all
Mhm.
dolce vita, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't change it for anything. If my daughter and granddaughter lived in Europe, I hardly think I would ever leave. So I love Italy. So.
Mhm.
And
That's a
you have not been down to Abruzzo to meet any of the Damianis?
We did go to Abruzzo. We went 2 years ago, and we went to Celano, the town that the Damianis lived in. But it was kind of a stop through sort of situation.
You didn't meet anybody that's related?
Not that I know of. There was a guy in the piazza that I struck up a conversation with, but I told him we were Damianis, and he was like, "Okay."
Yeah, there's a lot of them in that town. We're
Yeah.
Paterno is where some of the other relatives from his mother's side, or from his mother's side. Some of the Damianis were there also. So
Mhm.
someday we'll meet in Abruzzo.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. I love Abruzzo. You haven't been to Abruzzo?
Oh yes, many
Okay.
times. But
Okay.
I'm not a mountain. I'm a sea person, but I like this Mediterranean better than the East
In
Coast.
the Adriatic. Mhm.
So I like the rocky. I like stones and crystals. I like rocks. I
Mhm.
like that it's so rocky here, and all the
Mhm.
different. When you go to Cipatere, again, you will see it all, and I just love the striations of the stones, and I
Mhm.
love the beaches are rocky a little bit, but I just wear those little shoes and go in the water.
Mhm.
It's fine.
Have
And
you have you eaten on a trabocco in Abruzzo?
no, I think that would be great. Yeah, no, you did.
That's
I think
needs to
that
be
would
on
be
your list.
fun.
Yeah, we're trying to see if we can work it in to do that once more before we go, because
When do
whoa,
you
what an
when
experience.
when do you go back to the States? July?
Yes, beginning of July.
Oh,
We're gonna go by way of France. So my son's girlfriend's family has a house in France. So we're gonna stay there for a couple days, which I thought might soften the the return of coming home.
well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad we had this chance to do this.
Yeah,
And
me too. And I hope we can meet in Liguria next weekend.
I hope so. I'll be here. And
Mhm.
thank you so much. If you could send me a book cover of BEL CENTRO that I
Sure.
can put with this, and I've had you on my website since I opened it and met you. Well, since I met you 4 years ago.
Mhm.
So my website connects to your website. So people
Yes,
can
and mine
check it
connects to yours. You're the post you wrote for me about Liguria is one of my most popular posts.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Apparently, if you Google living in Liguria,
It comes up.
that post that you wrote for me comes up like third or something like this. Don't quote me because I can't remember when these things shift. But every month when I get my Google Analytics, I'm like, what the heck?
Well, that's good to know.
Not stuff you understand, not the stuff I'm writing.
I'm sorry,
For my
but you know, third, I'm sure your other stuff comes up too. But that's really encouraging. Thank you.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Yeah, I think people resonate with your work, so it's wonderful.
that's good. I want them to feel like they know me. So
Mhm.
we'll see what happens with the book. Because now I'm trying to turn, you know, now I've discovered more of Liguria. I'd never,
Mhm.
when I wrote that for you, it was all Taburo, which is this side of Genoa. And
Mhm.
now last year I went to the west side of Genoa, all the way to almost to France.
Mhm.
And I went up in the hinterlands, what they translate the hills,
Mhm.
and met so many people and did a lot of discovery of some of the most gorgeous towns up in the hills with views of the sea way down, you know, way down beyond, and wonderful people, just wonderful people. So
Mhm.
they'll be in my book too. And they're places that most tourists never heard of.
Right.
And I think that when people come back here, I think Italy is opening up, whether I think they should or not. They don't care what I think. I still haven't had my shot yet, but
Mhm.
they, I think that going off the beaten path to smaller towns with less tourism for part of their trip may be more appealing
Right.
because it might be safer. Also,
Well, safer and also just less crowded. I mean, the people that I know in the tourist industry predict this year and really next year, because this year was a little shaky on when it was going to open, to be like huge years in terms of tourism. So I think that it's going to be more important to seek out those tiny treasures.
it is. I think so too. And I think that seeking out the ones that truly are secret little hideaways.
Mhm.
You know, I've had people say that Luca is a hidden off the beaten path town, and I'm like, really? No, we call that Little America. Sorry, Americans.
Do
And
you really? I
Americans
didn't
do.
know that.
Oh yeah, we call it Little America. A lot of people do because there's so many Americans there.
Mhm.
And so that affects the culture. Now, you don't have a lot of Americans where you are that has changed the culture.
Mhm.
I don't have hardly, there's very few, there are very few Americans here. There are
Mhm.
a few Brits here.
Mhm.
And, but it's pretty natural. It's not touristy except for beach time, July and August.
Mhm.
So other than that, it's just the Ligurians and me.
It sounds
One
great.
little Southern girl. All right, well, thank you so much. I will share this on my Patreon page.
Sounds
And
great.
maybe a month from now, I will share it on other social media.
Okay, that sounds wonderful.
Thanks so much. And keep writing. I will read it all.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate your support.
I'm so glad we're family. And
Isn't
I
it
would support you even if we weren't.
wonderful?
Ok, ci vediamo forse un'altra settimana.
Yeah,
A
speriamo,
Cinque
speriamo.
Terre. Speriamo. In bocca al lupo. Do you know that one? In bocca al lupo?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay. A
Okay,
dopo.
a dopo.
Ciao.
Ciao.